Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Victoria and this is Launch to Bible Truths. In this video, we are going to look at the Book of Philemon and let's go straight into it. It is a short letter which was written by the Apostle Paul, who was imprisoned to Philemon, who was a wealthy Christian in Colossia. This book has three main characters and some other minor characters whom we are not going to look at today. We are focusing on these three, and number one is Paul, who is the author of the book and a friend to Philemon, and he was imprisoned at that time. The second main character is Philemon, who was a rich Christian in Colossia and a boss to Onesimus. He also used to host a church in his home, so he was a preacher of the gospel. Number three is Onesimus, who was the slave or the worker to Philemon. So Paul writes this letter addressing it to Philemon and telling him that his former slave Onesimus, who had run away after doing something wrong in his house, probably theft or any crime which was not clearly mentioned in the book, is now born again and he becomes useful to both of them. So in the letter, Paul urges Philemon to forgive Onesimus and receive him back no longer as a slave but as a dear brother. Dear brother. Just imagine that your employee does something wrong and they don't stop there, but they also run away, and after some time your pastor or your colleague writes to you telling you that this person is now born again and you should receive them back and you should restore them back to brotherhood. So that was unheard of. A slave who had done such a thing was subject to death or imprisonment. But Paul is telling Philemon here to forgive him and receive him back no longer as a slave but as a social equal. All right, so Paul even offers to pay Philemon anything that he was to charge on Onesimus. Okay, and you notice that in this letter, unlike in his other letters, Paul does not talk about the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ simply because he was acting it out. He offered to pay the price, just like Jesus paid the price so that we could be reconciled back to God. Paul offers to pay the price so that Onesimus and Philemon can now reconcile and be dear brothers and work together. He concludes his letter with confidence of his request being granted, and he asks Philemon to organize a room for him, so he was to return to him in response to the answered prayers of him getting out of jail. He then sends him greetings from his fellow prisoners in jail. So in my analysis in this letter, I see Onesimus having hit the wall. Onesimus did a crime and he didn't stop there, but he runs away. It was a wrong turn, it was a wrong move, and therefore he was hurting. His conscience was haunting him. He was not okay. But when he met Paul, he gets born again. Paul leads him to Christ, and then he tells him to go back for reconciliation. So this letter shows us that the gospel is good news of second chance. Onesimus having been hurting, Paul was asking Philemon to love him. So have you heard of anyone hurting? Is anyone hurting in your circles, around you, in your community, or at your workplace, in your church? It could be your husband, it could be your friend, it could be your immediate neighbor, it could be your cousin, whoever is hurting. We are called upon as Christians to love these people. Some of them are not even hurting because of the things they have done, no, but because of circumstances. Probably this person lost his job and then they feel less of themselves. They are no longer fit in your circle and they are looked down onto. Or probably someone has just gone through a divorce and everyone is condemning them, and they are feeling like, oh, this is so terrible, I made a wrong move, I shouldn't have done this. But what is done is done. The person is hurting. What are we supposed to do as Christians? We are supposed to show them the agape love, the love that Paul was asking Philemon to show to Onesimus. And it is so sad that sometimes, even as Christians, we condemn these people instead of showing them love, instead of standing with them. We go ahead and condemn them. No wonder it is said about Christianity as the only army that shoots its wounded. Someone has just gone through something very bad and they are hurting, and then we can't show that kindness, we can't show that agape love, but we instead go ahead and judge them and condemn them. So, how do we love a hurting person in our society? How do we love this hurting person around us, in our community or in our circles? Number one is by being a friend. You can be a friend to this person. Who is a friend? A friend is someone who knows you for who you are, and they accept you that way. All right, they don't judge you. They don't say, oh, you're too short, or you're too light, or you're so picky, or you're this. No, they accept you and they stand with you for who you are. A friend is this person who steps in when the whole world steps out. Just look at that scenario of Onesimus. He was the bad guy here. He did something wrong, so it was understandable for everyone to judge him and to be like, you know what, no, you have to pay for your crime, you have to pay for your mistake. But Paul stepped in and he was able to lead him to Christ, and he didn't stop there, but he also helped him reconcile with his former boss. He stepped in and he helped Onesimus to come out of that hurting situation. And that is what we ought to do today. Let's be friends with these people who are hurting. Not just friends, but real friends who will stand with them. Number two, on how to love this hurting person around you, is by forgiving. Forgive and accept them back. Just like Paul was asking Philemon to forgive Onesimus and accept him back now, not even as a slave, but as a social equal. So someone could have hurt you. Did you know that when someone hurts you, it is not only you who is hurting, they are hurting as well. So it is only your forgiveness that will release this person. All right? So you have to take that step of forgiving and accepting people the way they are. It could be your husband and he has hurt you in a way that you feel like, no, I can't forgive this. You can. Of course you can forgive, because you have that love. The gospel is a gospel of second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance. We are all the same. We have fallen short of God's glory and we need his mercy. We need his grace. So ask yourself, do I deserve God's grace? If you do, then that person who has hurt you deserves God's grace. If you do deserve God's grace, then that person who is hurting at your workplace, they deserve it too. That person who hurt you in a terrible way that you can't even talk about deserves that second chance. So we need to forgive them. We need to accept them back, just like Paul asked Philemon to do for Onesimus. Or number three, on how to love hurting people in our circles or around us, is by being a future giver. Do you realize that Philemon had Onesimus' future in his hands? By law, he could have him executed for the crime that he committed. Or as a believer, he could have him exalted to this place of brotherhood and service in ministry. If you go and read in the book, if you go and read Philemon verses 11, you'll see that he could have him restored to this place of brotherhood. And not only that, Paul told him that he becomes useful. He's going to help you in the ministry of spreading the gospel. But did Onesimus believe that? He needed to be forgiven first, accepted back, and then his future would now move on. So Paul was asking Philemon to give Onesimus a future, a second chance by restoring his future. A story is told about Thomas Edison, the bulb man, the man who invented the bulb, this bulb that we use to have light. So he made the bulb with his team. They took a very long time, and they made the first bulb sample. So someone has to take it upstairs for testing. So Thomas asks one of the teammates to take the bulb upstairs, and he carries it, but on his way to take it, it falls and it breaks, and everyone is there watching. This has taken us a long time. So while they were looking on, Thomas told them, okay, back to work, we have to come up with another sample. Notice he didn't complain to this guy. They went back to work, and it took them another 24 hours to produce the next sample. So after finishing the second sample, someone had to take it upstairs again for testing. So everyone is looking around, and they're wondering who is going to take this bulb this time. Thomas calls the same guy he called in the beginning to take the bulb for testing. So what was he thinking? This is the same guy who broke the bulb, which took us a long time to make, and he's calling him to take the second sample. So he didn't mind what had happened, but he was looking at the future of this person. He was giving him a second chance to prove to him that actually you can do it. You can take this bulb and nothing will happen to it. That's why he didn't choose another person. He chose the very person who broke the first bulb to go and test this bulb. And that is what the gospel is about. We have to give a second chance. This man's future could have been hindered by that incident, but Thomas was able to give him a chance to prove to himself that actually he can do better, that actually he could do any task. So he was confident after that process. Praise the Lord. So as Christians, we have to be future givers. You give this person a second chance, and then they'll move on in life. I hope you're getting value in this video. Will you be a friend by refreshing the wounded person around you? Just like Philemon used to do in his house when we look at verse 7. Will you be a forgiver by releasing the sinners? Forgive this person. That is what the gospel is calling us to do. Will you be a future giver by restoring one's spirit? You restore someone's spirit. Philemon used to refresh the hearts of many Christians who used to meet in his house. And that is what Paul was asking him to do for Onesimus. And that is what Paul was asking all of us to do today. We have to restore people's spirits. We have to restore them back to that exalted place of service, of brotherhood, of kindness, of love. Praise the Lord. I hope this video was really helpful. I hope you enjoyed the Bible study with me. Consider subscribing if you're new here. Stay blessed. I love you.